Good morning and good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. All right. Good afternoon and welcome to the City Council meeting for Tuesday, June 27th. And we can first start off with a roll call, Madam City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Hagan. Councillor Campbell.
Present.
Councillor Carlson.
Here.
Councillor Croson.
Present.
Councillor Dodek.
Present.
Palladino.
Present.
Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Here.
Mayor Parker. Deputy Mayor Middleton Hope.
Present.
And Mayor Hagan. All present. Thank you.
All right. The City of Lethbridge acknowledges that we're gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people past, present, and future, while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationships to the land. City of Lethbridge is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. Move on for recognitions and start off to my far right with Councillor Croson. My far right? Oh! Well,
Consider the language. I wouldn't suggest that I'm far right. However,
Sorry, Councillor Middleton. Deputy Mayor Middleton Hope. Boy, go away for a few days here. Oh, my. Thank you.
okay, so let's go back a whole week or so. Was representative of the city to meet the delegation from the Netherlands, trade delegation from the Netherlands at PIP International. Great opportunity to meet and greet people that are part of the agricultural sector. And they were quite excited to be in Lethbridge and meeting with some of our area businesses. Second was National Indigenous Peoples Day ceremony at City Hall on the 21st. Great opportunity to celebrate our National Indigenous Peoples Day. We had lots of speakers from a variety of different communities, and I think it was well attended. Next is, here we go, 21st Annual ATB Rotary Dragon Boat Festival, and I got to paddle a dragon boat for the first time in about 30 years. Well attended. They anticipated that they would have in excess of 15,000 people attend the festivities over the weekend, and if Friday night was any indication, I'm sure that they met and exceeded that. And my last encounter was at the Fête Nationale, which was the celebration of Alberta's Francophone Association, which was held at the Jack Martin pavilion or picnic area down in the River Valley. And it was a great opportunity to see all of our citizens, or many of our citizens, who speak French. They claim that there's in excess of 10,000 people in the city of Lethbridge who claim that French is their primary language. And so I got an opportunity to speak French, and although I think my French is not great, everybody thought it was fabulous. So there we go. I'll be our delegate lead when we go to Saint Laurent this summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Croson, for the second, the far left. Far right. Sorry.
I'll stick with far left. I attended the Voices of Youth Mental Wellness Community Forum. As some of you may remember, Dr. Tams was in front of us presenting from the University of Calgary on the work they've been doing over the last few years. So they brought forward youth and parents and people who work in the field and some of us who come from political backgrounds to look at what they have done and to help that project move forward. And it was a beautiful way to spend a Friday afternoon. Unfortunately, we have a lot of work to do in youth mental health and to provide the supports that youth need. And this was a great way to better understand it and to work with the University of Calgary on this. So it was an interesting way to spend an afternoon.
Thank you, Councillor Croson. Councillor Palladino.
I have nothing, sir.
Right. Acting Mayor Parker. Way over to my far left, Councillor Dodek.
Yes, thank you. I attended, and I want to congratulate the Pride Festival organizers this year. I attended the flag raising in front of City Hall for Pride. I also attended at the Lethbridge College. A number of members of my colleagues on council were there whose names escape me at this point in time, but I believe they were both left-wing and right-wing. I also attended the National Indigenous People Day, and I shout out to the Rotary Dragon Festival. And finally, I took my 3 grandkids to the Henderson Lake playground yesterday, and that was the most fun of all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell.
It pretty much wrapped up what I had. Just a real shout out to the organizers of the Dragon Boat Festival and Pride Fest. The amount of work that goes into it and the vibrancy it has created in the city is just amazing. It just feels like you're in a real happening city. And also, I was in attendance with a couple of colleagues I can't remember either at the raising of the progressive pride flag at the Lethbridge College, and it was what was just an incredibly succinct and emotional and well-meaning speeches that were given that was really heartwarming. So those were my thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Mayor Hagan. I think they've all been covered, but just to follow up on Councillor Campbell, I love this community, love this city, but the weekend that is Pride and Dragon Boats is always my favorite weekend in the city. The city is just alive and happening. We've got so many people downtown in our parks. It's amazing. All summer long is amazing. If you get a chance, go downtown. It is quite the happening place. My colleague, Councillor Campbell, just took a little walk over lunchtime, and we're just always amazed at how vibrant and exciting our downtown is and can be. And so get out there and enjoy it. So congratulations to the folks that did the Pride Fest and Dragon Boats. A bit of a, not really self-serving, but a congratulations to one of my colleagues' wives. Amy Dodick received one of the Pride Chairman's Awards for allyship. For her work with Southminster United Church and being an opening and inclusive place. So congratulations to Amy for me, Reiko. Appreciate the work she did on that. And happy Canada Day. Next weekend's going to be awesome. I hope to see many of you at the Bulls game, the doubleheader, and the fireworks in the park. See you there.
All right. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much. Certainly echoing everything that did go on this past weekend and the weekend coming up. I also had the opportunity to attend the Chamber Chairs Reception and Volunteer Appreciation event. Congratulations to Randy Helm, the new Chamber Chair and President, and as well congratulations to Charlene Scheffelmeyer, who was awarded the Outstanding Volunteer of the Year Award. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank all of my colleagues. I was away for close to a couple weeks here on a holiday, and for all those that attended these different events, sounds like there was much going on within the community. And I did want to throw out as well Canada Day celebrations coming up here, as we won't be meeting before those happenings. And so lots happening over at Henderson. There's and around the community for that matter. So it's if you have the opportunity, the doubleheader, as Councillor Carlson mentioned, and baseball, or head over for the fireworks later in the park. So with that, we'll move over to the adoption of the agenda. I have a resolution from Acting Mayor Parker. Adoption of agenda. Be it resolved that the agenda of the regular meeting of City Council on June 27th, 2023 be adopted as presented. And City Clerk Hilford, are there any additions?
Mayor Hagan, I do have one public written submission for an item on the consent agenda that was not submitted to committee as it was received just yesterday evening. It's for item 4.4.2, the Shelter Development Strategy. And it's from the Downtown BRZ, the ED, or sorry. Yeah, from the Downtown BRZ.
Add that. That would require just, if it's okay with council to have that added to the agenda. Is that okay? Process. Anybody have any issues with that, or can we add that to the agenda? Seeing none, we'll add that to the agenda. So with that addition, Acting Mayor Parker. Questions? Oh, question over there.
I'd like to know what they want to talk about.
We'll hand that out.
Hand it out.
As soon as it's voted on, we will distribute it. Correct. So the agenda is amended.
As amended. And questions been called? All in favor? Any opposed? That's moves. Thank you. Next we have consent agenda. Ooh, that's a long one. Go through it, someone will say And for the consent agenda from Deputy Mayor Middleton Hope, be it resolved that the minutes of the following meeting of council be approved and the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the same. Special city council meeting from June 12th, 2023, and city council meeting June 13th, 2023, and further be resolved that city council receive the information on the following reports: status of directed resolutions for June 13th and procurement summary report for May 2023. Be resolved that city council approve the recommendations contained within the following standing policy committee reports. 4.4.1 is an indoor court audit and analysis recommendation strategy. 4.4.2 is a shelter development strategy. 4.4.3, Yates Memorial Operating Review. And further be resolved, the City Council direct administration to hold a public hearing on Thursday, July 25th at 3 p.m. for the following bylaw. Bylaw 6405, Land Use Bylaw Amendment, re 1304 6th Avenue South. Now, I skipped through that. There was a lot of information there, and I'm sure if my colleagues have any questions on the consent agenda, if anything should be pulled, that would have been in our package. And so instead of reading the 3 pages, I'm sure everybody has taken note of that. Any questions?
I have a question
Palladino?
on the date of
The public hearing for the 6th Avenue South one?
No, well, the one you referred to as, I think you said July 25th?
That's what I'm asking. Yeah.
Is that it?
That is
It's the last.
a public hearing on July 25th, so it's the last council meeting of before the summer break for August, July 25th. And that's 6405 Land Use Bylaw Amendment, 1304 6th Avenue South.
Thank you.
All right. And with that, turn it over to Deputy Mayor Middleton Hope. Call.
Pretty much it. Everybody has had as much discussion as they need. No changes, no other changes. Thank you. Then I will call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you.
All right, so that goes there. ATCO.
I have no presentations or OBM, so move on to bylaws. From Councillor Dodick, bylaw 6400, ATCO franchise agreement for second reading. Be it resolved that bylaw 6400, ATCO franchise agreement be given second reading. Councillor Dodick.
So if it's electricity or natural gas, they give it to me. Okay. The city and ATCO Gas have been working together under a franchise agreement since 1940, and the last one ended on February 6th of 2022. On March 15 of 23, ATCO presented to the Economics Standing Policy Committee, which requested first reading of this bylaw that we're having second reading of, and that was done by council on April 4th. City clerk sent a copy to the Alberta Utilities Commission of the bylaw and various other information. The next steps involved in getting this done is it has to be advertised in the Herald, which was on April 27th and May 4th. No comments were received by the close of the comment period, which was May 11th of this year. So after May 11th, ATCO submitted to Alberta Utility Commission, who approved the agreement by letter dated May 18th, 2023, which is in the package. The proposed agreement is a standard agreement reviewed by Alberta municipalities, and it's not significantly different than past agreements. The agreement describes how franchise fees are charged, and they're shown on your gas bill. The fee received from the city is for ATCO's use of municipal right-of-way for installation of their distribution system. So the current fee the city receives is 27% of ATCO's revenue, excluding the cost of gas. And the fee can actually be adjusted upwards to a maximum of 35%. The term is a minimum of 10-year and the maximum is 20-year. The bottom line is that we let ATCO put in infrastructure to deliver their product, and we charge a franchise fee for that purpose. In other words, gas is delivered, we get paid, please approve the second reading of this bylaw. Any other debate?
I'll open up for questions or debate. Sorry, I didn't ask for any questions. It looked like the queue was not filling up, and it is still not filling up. So in closing, I take it to your opening and closing?
In closing, I'm going to read everything I said backwards. Or alternatively, I will call the question.
Question has been called. All in favor? Any opposed? Unanimous. And for third reading, be it resolved that bylaw 6400 ATCO franchise agreement be given third reading and the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign and seal the same. Councillor Dodick?
Call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Delayed over there. We do have unanimous. All right. All right, some exciting stuff coming up here now. It's always exciting. This is census information. So I do have a resolution from Councillor Croson, results of the 2023 census, verbal. And so we're going to turn the time over to our city clerk, Ms. Hilford.
Thank you, Mayor Hagan. Good afternoon, members of council. First, sorry? It's a verbal presentation.
With colors.
And I'll be giving you some highlights after, some written highlights. First of all, I'd like to start by thanking the citizens of Lethbridge. We appreciate the participation and time given with providing their responses to the census either online or at the door to the census takers. The data plays a vital role in determining important future community needs, requirements, and services. As a reminder, the last City of Lethbridge municipal census was completed in 2019. That's 4 years ago. That number was 101,482. So the following numbers will be compared to that census number. Next slide. Okay, so I'm thrilled to announce we had, oh geez. You know what, I did have sound and that had wind with it, but we couldn't get the sound working. Yeah, I was wondering what was going on there. Okay. So I'm thrilled to announce we had a 100% completion rate, which is truly remarkable. So it's now appropriate and my pleasure to acknowledge Wendy Smith, who's not actually here right now, census assistant, but David is, and David was the census coordinator, and of course he's the deputy city clerk, who did an amazing job, as always, managing this census. Thank you so much. He will probably be saying words when you have questions. So one of the tasks of Wendy and David was to hire and train the 150 census takers. So I'd like to extend a big thank you to the census workers who went to every household and placed the census information holders on every door, and then went back 2 or 3 times on average to obtain the information that wasn't provided online. So big thank you to those people. Big job. So on with the show. So for 2023 census, 44,095 dwellings. That's an increase of 2,073 or 4.9% from 2019. 21,551 dwellings or 48.9% completed the census online, and that's up 2,296 or 4.7%. Average residents per dwelling is 2.42, a slight increase of 0.01. The vacancy rate is 4.8%, and that's down 0.2%. And the average age is 39, and that's up 0.6. Okay. Next slide. There was positive growth in all 3 areas of the city. The largest growth area is West Lethbridge with 2,895 people or 7.08%. The top 8 growth neighborhoods are number 8, Country Meadows in the west, 286 people, 53.8%. Number 7, Riverstone in the west, 303 people, 9.4%. Number 6, Crossings in the west, 347 people, 61.6%. Number 5, Legacy Ridge in the north, 367 people, 12.4%. Number 4, Black Wolf. In the north, 785 people, 79.5%. Number 3, South Brook in the south, 821 people. That's a new neighborhood since 2019, so we have no comparable to it yet. Number 2, Copperwood in the west, 897 people, 16.6%. And number 1, Gary Station in the west, 1,002 people, 88.8%. Next slide, please. That had a drum roll with it. I told David to bring a set of drums, but I think he forgot them. So the total population increase is 5,068 people. That's 4.99% over 4 years, or 1.25% per year on average. And the total count is, therefore, 106,550 people, which continues to make us the third largest city in Alberta. So the 39-page census report with all the detailed results will be published online shortly, and you can access that at lethbridge.ca/census. I'm open, and David's open for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hilford. That was a great presentation. You held off to the very end, just build that up to the end. So
And I do have the highlights to hand out.
highlights are there to hand out. All right. So with that, do we have any questions for Ms. Hilford or Mr. David? I see none. So with that, I will turn over to Councillor Crowson. Oh, a question? Councillor Dodick.
Did I miss it, or did it show the south and north side increases?
I do have that.
We have a public hearing at 3 o'clock. I need to extend this.
The south increase was 897 people, 2.77%. The north was 1,276 people, 4.53%. And that's in your highlights. And Ryan, can you give that to me, the media as well, please? Thank you.
Could you put a 0.01% more to hit that 5%, hey? One additional person to move. All right. So I see no questions. To open debate, Councillor Crowson.
Thank you very much to the City Clerk's Department, to Mr. Sarsfield, to Ms. Smith, to Ms. Hilford for all the work that has gone into this, and to the 150 people who worked on it. And as was mentioned, thank you to the residents who took the time to make sure that every single person was counted. This continues to show the growth of Lethbridge, and it's always nice to be ahead of Red Deer. And with that, I will call the question.
All right, I see no further debate, so I'll take as open and closing, and question has been called. Now, what happens if we are opposed to this?
You have to give the information back.
All right, with that, question has been called. All in favor? Any opposed? That was not an up or down for either? You didn't hit your numbers, yes. All right, with that, thank you again, Ms. Hilford. Actually, we'll move on. We do have a public hearing at 3 o'clock, but we will move to council updates. Are there any council updates? Because you've got an hour and 6 minutes. All right, with that, no council updates. And so with that, we are adjourned until the public hearing at, or recessed, not adjourned, I'm sorry, recessed until the public hearing at 3 p.m. Thank you. As soon as that clicked 3 o'clock. All right. I call to order the public hearing for bylaw 6402, land use bylaw amendment re 618 6th Avenue South. The procedure for this hearing will be, we'll call first on Kurt Fisher, community planner, to provide background to the case. Anyone else who wishes to speak to the bylaw will then be called upon. We'll then ask 3 times if there's anybody else who would like to make a presentation. Then City Council will have the opportunity to ask questions of any of the presenters. The hearing will then be closed and consideration of second and third reading will be made by City Council immediately following the public hearing. So I first call upon Kurt Fisher to provide the background to the case.
To go up a little bit there. Good afternoon, Your Worship and members of City Council. My presentation today is for a proposed land use bylaw amendment for the property located at 618 6th Avenue South. Next slide, please. So here's an overview of the proposed land use bylaw amendment, which is to rezone the property from medium density residential R37 to direct control. And the applicant is in attendance as well today. Next slide, please. So the property is located in the center of the city, is in the London Road neighborhood, and as you can see by the aerial photo on the right, it's located along 6th Avenue South, which is a higher traffic corridor. Next slide, please. So here is a photo of the front of the property looking south across 6th Avenue. Next slide, please. And here's the rear view of the property looking north from the alley. And as you can tell, the existing building is consistent with the smaller scale built forms that are adjacent to it. Next slide, please. So here's a comparison of the existing land use district on the left and the proposed land use district on the right. And just to note that the DC district, it would add an additional personal services use while also maintaining the smaller scale residential character of the property. And as you can see, the property is surrounded by a mixture of land use districts, largely downtown commercial on the north side of 6th Avenue, and on the south side of 6th Avenue, it's predominantly residential, with a few properties along 6th Ave that do have land use districts that allow for commercial uses. And this is the case for the Big Brothers and the Big Sisters property, which is directly adjacent to this property. Next slide, please. So just to review, the applicant is looking to convert the existing single detached dwelling to a personal services use to allow for a massage therapy business. And this is not currently allowed under the current R37 district. Next slide, please. So in terms of evaluation analysis, the applicant did host an open house in February. However, no neighbors attended or expressed any concerns with the proposal. And for this property, the direct control district was chosen because the existing building does not meet the standards of our conventional commercial districts. And this is similar to what's been done in a few nearby properties along 6th Avenue, where we've also seen single detached dwellings converted to allow for commercial uses on those properties as well. And the direct control district, it also provides more certainty to the applicant as well. The proposal was circulated to city staff, and they did not identify any servicing or infrastructure concerns related to the land use bylaw amendment itself. Next slide, please. So the proposed bylaw 6402, it would comply with the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan, specifically with Strategy 5.1-3, and also the adaptive reuse of the existing structure on the property would contribute to a healthy environment, a healthy economy, and a higher quality of life. Next slide, please. The proposal would also align with our municipal development plan, specifically with policies 91 and policy 100. Next slide, please. And in addition, it'll also comply with the London Road area redevelopment plan, specifically with the 6th Avenue South sub-area, which is where the property is located. And the vision for that area is to be a vibrant mixed-use corridor that provides a transition between the downtown and the smaller scale residential development in the inner neighborhood. The vision also supports a mix of uses with context-sensitive designs and promotes the adaptive reuse of existing small-scale residential buildings. And the ARP also does include policies that supports commercial uses that meet the daily and weekly needs of residents. Next slide, please. So for notification, in addition to the open house that the applicant hosted, letters were mailed to the 20 adjacent landowners, as shown in the green hatched areas on the map above. And it was also advertised in the Lethbridge Herald and also posted on our city's website as well. And as of today, I have not received any questions or any concerns regarding this proposal. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, the bylaw 6402 would be compliant with all relevant statutory plans, and it's our department's recommendation that council consider this report as information for the public hearing. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
That was pretty speedy. Thank you very much. I'll now call upon the applicant, Rosemary Shannon.
Fairly much taller version of me. Okay,
There's a little button on the side there. You can lower it down. And
thank you. Thank you. Much better. Okay, good afternoon. My name is Rosemary Shannon. I am the property owner and the applicant regarding bylaw 6402 and the redevelopment of my property 618 6th Avenue South to direct control. What I would like to do with this property is convert it to a massage therapy business. For the last 20 years, I've worked at Lethbridge College as a massage therapy instructor, and at this point, I'd like to transition my life from being an instructor to being a business owner in the city of Lethbridge. I've lived in this house since 1999, and one of the reasons I'm doing this is this property was purchased with my mother, who passed away in 2021. My brother, who will be my business partner, and I would like to honor her memory by creating a sustainable future for our children in Lethbridge. I believe that what I'm proposing to do would contribute positively to the London Road neighbourhood, providing services to the members of this community. It would also contribute positively to the London Road neighbourhood with respect to bringing other citizens of Lethbridge into what I think is one of the best neighbourhoods in Lethbridge, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm willing to debate that with anybody here. I think I also would like to provide the individuals that I have trained as massage therapists and future massage therapists in Lethbridge with the opportunity to create sustainable livelihoods for themselves and their families. Just as this profession has contributed very positively to my life, I would like to promote that and further that for those individuals who are practicing as massage therapists in Lethbridge. At this point, if you have any questions, I would be happy to attempt to answer them.
right, first of all, we'll go off. Thank you very much for the presentation, and I'll move on if there's any public comments, and then we can ask you to come up if there's questions after by council.
Excellent, thank you.
Are there any members of the public that wish to make a presentation on this matter? As a reminder, presenters will have 5 minutes to speak to the issue. For a second time, are there any members of the public that wish to make a presentation on this matter? And for a third and final time, are there any members of the public that wish to make a presentation on this matter? Hearing no other presenters, it's now time for City Council to ask questions of the presenters. And I do have in the queue Deputy Mayor Middleton Hope.
Thank you. So this question will be to the presenter. To the applicant, I guess. Yes, of course. So this is currently a single-family residence. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and you want to transition it into operating a business out of there. Will there be people living in this premise beyond this point?
No, we will be moving out and purchasing an additional property in Lethbridge for residential.
Okay. I guess this is perhaps a question for the city manager in terms of what we seem to be doing along 6th Avenue. There seems to be a substantial amount of interest in commercializing 6th Avenue when there are arguably ample locations within the downtown core that sit vacant. So I'm wondering, we are creating a business out of this residence, and I don't mean any disrespect, but we in fact are displacing people that would normally live there to somewhere else. We have a shortage of housing in the city, and yet we're continuing to promote businesses down along 6th Avenue in exchange for empty premises that currently exist in the downtown core. So is this a strategy that we're either being a part of actively or passively? That would be perhaps a difficult question.
I'd like to point of order. I believe this is a zoning application, and the questions being raised by the questioner have nothing to do with the zoning applications up before us. We should be dealing with this applicant and not with anything else. And that is my point of order.
As for the point of order taken, it would be to discuss the change to direct control and not anything outside of that. So I'll ask you to stay
And I've
on
got
topic
my
of
answer
that.
from you, which is basically, it is a residence currently. What you propose is to turn it into a business.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? I'll ask one last time. Any further questions from my colleagues? I don't see any more in the queue. So hearing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. This matter may be decided later this afternoon following the public hearing. Next, I have bylaw 6403, public hearing, bylaw 643. Just try that again. 6403, land use bylaw amendment, re 1730, 10th Avenue South. The procedure for this hearing will begin by calling on Genesis Avia Oreo, community planner, to provide background to the case. Anyone else who wishes to speak on this bylaw will then be called upon. We'll ask 3 times. If there's anybody else who wishes to make a presentation, City Council will then have the opportunity to ask questions of the presenters. The hearing will then be closed and considerations of second and third reading will be made by City Council immediately following the public hearing. I now call on Genesis Avia Oreo. And you know what? I'm going to get that right. It's been how many years, right, Genesis? The name to provide a background on the case. The time is yours.
Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm bringing forward bylaw 6403, a proposed land use bylaw amendment for the property at 1730 10th Avenue South. Next slide, please. The applicant is Ken Harvey. He's with Concept IP, and he's here to make a presentation as well. The purpose of the application is to continue allowing the existing permitted uses, which are assisted and supportive living residential care facilities. In addition to this, the applicant also wishes to introduce a range of commercial and residential uses to facilitate a mixed-use building. This accomplished by introducing a new direct control bylaw. Next slide. The property is located within the Victoria Park neighborhood, and I've included an air photograph of the site that demonstrates its scale and its proximity to the hospital just to the north. Next slide. Here are a few site photographs. This is the front of the building taken from 10th Avenue South. Next. This is from the rear of the property taken from 18th Street South. Next. And this is on 17A Street, again, the rear of the building. Next slide. Here is a side-by-side comparison of what we're proposing. So rezoning from DC to a new direct control bylaw. This also shows the composition of land use districts surrounding the site. The area in blue is the hospital, and majority of the sites surrounding the site are low-density residential. Next slide. So for background to the site, this property was originally 10 undeveloped residential properties, zoned low-density residential. In 1992, it was rezoned to allow housing development that was never built. In 2003, the existing DC bylaw was introduced. So bylaw 5203 allows the existing building and the uses. And so the uses include assisted and supportive housing, and the only allowable user of the site is seniors. So that means that only seniors can be housed at this location. In April of 2022, last year, the previous property owner came before you and submitted an application for rezoning. This application intended to eliminate the age restriction that is placed on the permitted uses, essentially allowing anyone of any age, of any need, to be housed at this property. This proposal faced significant opposition, and it was defeated by council. Next slide. Since then, the property has been purchased by the applicant of this rezoning application, and the applicant's purpose for rezoning differs slightly from bylaw 6403 before you today. So the applicant intended to continue the uses of assisted and supportive living residential care facilities. This is met by bylaw 6403. Alongside with these uses, the applicant wished to carry over the senior-only restriction that is placed on those uses. This is not included in bylaw 6403. And in addition to this, the applicant also wanted to see or utilize this building as a mixed-use building, so we did introduce new uses in bylaw 6403 to realize this. Next slide. Okay, so I'll provide additional detail on bylaw 6403. So as shared in the previous slide, we do continue allowing assisted and supportive residential care facilities. We do eliminate the age limitation. So that means that anyone who is housed at the assisted and supportive living residential care facility could be of any age and any need. The applicant did host an open house back in March of this year, where the feedback we received expressed opposition to removing the age restriction. However, we have removed it in bylaw 6403 because as the planning department at the City of Lethbridge, we cannot regulate the user, we can only regulate the use. And so bylaw 6403 has been adapted accordingly. Next slide. Okay, so in addition to continuing the or carrying over the elements of the existing bylaw, we've also introduced a range of commercial and residential uses to facilitate a mixed-use building. The residential uses allow the existing building and the floor plans, including the communal spaces, to continue to be utilized. So it allows the adaptive reuse of the building. It also allows a type of housing similar to a Ronald McDonald House. The commercial uses introduced as part of this bylaw result in what we call a patient-centered development, and this is a term shared by the site administrator at the hospital, who's advocating for an increase of uses around the hospital to provide a better experience for patients, people visiting, and people working at the hospital. In addition to supporting the hospital community, this proposal also has the potential to enhance the day-to-day lives of people who live around this site. By just increasing the amount of services and amenities they could have access to. The open house attendees supported this component of bylaw 6403. Next slide. The Dizzy Drug Control District was identified as the most appropriate district for this proposal because it allows us to carry forward the rules found in bylaw 5211, and the combination of uses that we've introduced are not found in any other district in the land use bylaw. This proposal was also reviewed by city staff, and there are no infrastructure or servicing concerns identified. Next slide. This proposal is in line with the SSRP, particularly with policies relating to the efficient use of land and the development of great communities. Next slide. This is also in line with the municipal development plan, with policies relating to densifying around commercial areas, supporting small-scale commercial spaces to encourage local businesses, the efficient use of land, and the equitable treatment of all Lethbridge residents. Next slide. So in terms of notifying the public and public notices, we had a few touch points with surrounding neighbors at various points of this process. So as mentioned, the applicant hosted an open house. The invitations for this open house were sent out by mail to people living and owning property within 200 meters of the site. The open house was very well attended, and most of the attendees provided their email addresses to receive updates as part of this process. The next touch point was an email to the attendees of the open house, as well as a direct mail out to residents within 60 meters of the site, as identified in this map, with the notice that the application had been submitted by the applicant. Following the first reading of this bylaw, I sent out, again, an email and a direct mail out to notify interested parties that a public hearing had been set and how to provide feedback. From these touch points, I've received 3 inquiries. 2 of them asked for the existing and the proposed bylaw, and they did not provide additional comments. And we have received 1 submission with a set of questions, which the applicant responded directly to the person who inquired. From that, we have not received a response. Next slide. So in conclusion, this proposal aligns with the SSRP and the MDP, and Planning and Design recommends that City Council consider this as information for the public hearing for this bylaw. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I'll now call on the applicant, Ken Harvey, to make a presentation.
Your Worship and members of council, I am Ken Harvey of Concept Investment Partners. We're a boutique development group located here in Lethbridge, and we've been helping to shape the community for the past 25 years. We're here today to ask for your support and your approval for a rezoning to facilitate a patient-centered development for the following uses but not limited to: accommodations for out-of-town families with loved ones receiving care at the Chinook Regional Hospital, locum housing for doctors, nurses, and administration staff working at the hospital, small specialty clinics, and small format retail food uses. Our intent is to renovate the structure to allow us to support the activities that happen at the Chinook Regional Hospital, as well as the surrounding community by creating places to dwell. We are looking to create a community within the structure that extends out from the existing into the existing community surrounding the project. The zoning as it is today is restrictive in nature, and currently the structure has limited marketability as there's a high number of vacancies and lodges in the city of Lethbridge like this structure. Albeit this structure does have larger hallways, doors, and other accessibility features, it falls between the gap of independent senior living and the care facility providing some of the care allowed under the current zoning. While we understand the sensitivity of removing the word senior, this is in alignment with a lot of the municipalities across Alberta removing what they call sorry, I just lost what I was looking for, specific language inside of bylaws. So like Genesis said, the cities regulate the use, not the user. So the inclusion or the exclusion of the word is not highly impactful on our development, but it certainly would allow more comprehensive patient-centered uses to occur now and into the future. And we are cognizant of the fact that the removal of limiting words in the future land use bylaw and the possible prudency to removal at this present time rather than sometime in the future. The accessibility features and the fact that the structure is protected by sprinklers lends itself to adaptive reuse and the redevelopment of the structure for our vision and desired outcome. Moreover, the position of the structure in proximity to Chinook Regional Hospital and the 10th Avenue corridor provides an opportunity to create a transit-oriented development and allows us to support the activities across the street. Currently, 10th Avenue is about to go under a functional planning study, which will look at all the streets around the hospital. We did hire our own engineer and actually took a look at how we can increase parking stock in the community. It was part of your package today, and we will forward that on to the transportation group for their consideration. I thank you for your time, and I look forward to any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public that wish to make a presentation on this matter? And as a reminder, you'll have 5 minutes to speak to the issue. For a second time, are there any members of the public who wish to make a presentation on this matter? For a third and final time, are there any members of the public that wish to make a presentation on this matter? Hearing no other presenters, it's now time for City Council to ask questions of the presenters. And I do have questions in the queue, starting with Deputy Mayor Midland-Ho.
Thank you. This is through the city manager to Mr. Lowen. In regards to the language used currently, can you speak to the changing, the changing environment regarding that specific language, seniors as a specific designated group of individuals? What are the advantages and disadvantages or the legal requirements of removing that terminology?
Thank you for the question. The simplest way I can put it is it's a growing recognition that while that was once commonplace, that that describing the user isn't an appropriate use of land use regulatory authority. We don't say houses for this kind of person or that kind of person. It's just the house itself is the use. So it's the seniors are the user, and that's why we take it out of there. Additionally, it would be a ground, age is a ground of discrimination under the charter as well, and it could bear that kind of scrutiny as well.
Good, thank you.
Further to that, I'd like to just add on to Deputy Mayor's question through Mr. City Manager to our City Solicitor. If this was not changed, the age, and someone was to put in all ages, from what I've heard, there's not much that we would have to stand on anyways, because that would be allowed. Is that correct to say? Fair to say?
It would be my opinion that if we litigated that matter, we would likely lose. So yes, that would be my opinion.
All right, thank you. Councillor Palladino.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The two questions, I had three questions. Two of them have been answered already about the age restrictive language, specifically the word seniors. And I agree that age cannot be a factor in land use planning. In the summary of the planner summary, what is it about 6403 that doesn't align with the developer's vision for the property? That's mentioned in bullet number 3.
So the feedback that the applicant has received about this proposal was in opposition of removing the age restriction. And so because this bylaw removes it, that is the only difference between the applicant's application, which he submitted to maintain the senior use. This bylaw removes it. So it's not that it negatively impacts him, it's that he listened to the feedback of the community and submitted the application that reflected that.
Another question I had was, and maybe you're not the person to answer it, but after breaking out office uses and commercial uses and daycare and clinics, et cetera, how many multi-family or multi-dwelling units are anticipated to be left intact?
The question, I'll let the applicant answer that.
We're still in the planning stages. We don't know, but we've kind of identified the third floor as the residential suite. So each one of those floors are about 14,000, and there's 14,000 square feet, and there's 60 units in there, which a lot of them are small bachelor units. So it would be a combination. So we'd probably be left with 8 to 12 suites, possibly, because the commercial kitchen's also on that third floor. So if we repurpose that into suites, we'd realize about 8 to 12.
Eliminate the commercial kitchen?
That's one proposal. The other one is we may put the residential suites on one half of the building, on the western half of the building, on floors 2 and 3, which would gain us about the exact same number. So if we had the respite care providers we've been speaking to, if they were going to utilize the third floor, they would want to keep the commercial kitchen for that use.
I have no idea how big it is, but given it a commercial kitchen, it's probably pretty adequate. My final question, and the reason I asked about the number of units is because it's been determined that 24 parking stalls is adequate for your proposal, right? At least that's the planning department's come up with. And that's pretty much the parking that comes off of the rear lane. So are you looking, do you think you require more parking than that?
I think you can always add more parking stock, which is why we undertook the planning exercise with our own engineers to sort of figure out how could we increase the parking stock around the building without negatively impacting. Part of the 10th Avenue functional study that's happening is that transportation, I know, is looking at that 10th Avenue corridor and wanting to add additional transit facilities, which is currently in front of our building. So there's talk of an expansion to a larger facility in front of our building, which would then sort of tailor how many parking stalls we could actually put on the site. But again, we're going to work with transportation on how many stalls. So what I think in the bylaw today was just carrying over from the original 5211 bylaw on what was approved back then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for both presentations. This to the city manager or to his designate, which I'm going to guess is Ms. Hevia Oriel or Mr. Sanchez. One of the questions I'm getting is that under permitted uses, it's listed medical and health office outpatient. So one of the questions I'm getting is, does this allow for a supervised consumption site on this location?
Yes, that's a good question. The short answer is no, and it's based on the scale of the supervised. This facility outpatient is part of the definitions that are going to be done. That's no different than any outpatient clinic that is happening currently around the hospital. There are several outpatients from pediatricians to different specialists that provide that type of outpatient service. This is what my understanding is what is proposed within this facility, but no supervised consumption site. As part of the application for a larger scale, that won't be approved, is not permitted within the use that is being approved today.
Okay, so that's not permitted within what we're approving today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. You took my question. I'm glad that you had that question. Councillor Dodick.
Yes, I have two questions, one for the city solicitor and one for the administrative presenter. To the city solicitor, the applicant wanted to retain the age limit with respect to seniors residential, but city administration, as a result of policy 49 and for other reasons, thought that we really couldn't put that in the bylaw. But would you agree with me that under the Human Rights Act, I'm not going to get you to have it right before you, but Section 5 does allow exemption for landlords to put in an age restriction subject to certain conditions, being that a senior has to live there, or one senior and another person who doesn't have to be a senior. So if this bylaw were to be approved, this would not prevent whoever is actually developing the building, whether it be Mr. Harvey or someone or a subsequent purchaser, from actually putting in a senior's requirement subject to the provisions of the Human Rights Act. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, that if, for example, a developer wanted to turn it into a condominium that was age restricted 55 plus, something like that, that would be permissible under the law. It just wouldn't be reflected in the zoning approval.
And now to the administrative presenter. I just want you to confirm for me, sometimes we tend to get into the weeds and we start veering off into the actual development of the property versus the zoning. So my understanding is that today we're looking at an application for a zoning, which allows for a number of permitted use. If we approve that today, and it turns out, whether it be Mr. Harvey or a subsequent purchaser wants to have or develop any or all or any combination thereof of the permitted uses, they still have to go through the planning development application process. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's correct.
My questions.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Harvey. Mr. Harvey, I think it's just important. I'd asked you this question previously, but it's important that I think you asked my colleagues and those watching to understand. I guess it's been a couple of years ago, previous application for this, there was quite an outcry, and hence the reason why you had another tea party, which it sounds like it came back quite positive. And it's my understanding that because of the zoning previously, this is what there was concerns with, but your development and what your vision from what I'm seeing with the uses that you put in there are nothing near what previously was going to be looked at going in there. Is that fair to say?
I think that'd be very fair to say. I mean, I don't know the former applicant's application, but I would assume that ours is quite different, yes.
You're different, okay. And I guess for the presenter, 60 meters is where this went out. This would be the same as what's been done on a previous applicant. I'm looking at this, and I'm sorry that I keep bringing up a previous. There was concerns previously to this area. Could you tell me if that was the same distance that went out for communication, 60 meters, to the previous time we had this?
Yes, last time we notified the same properties within 60 meters.
And just to confirm, how many concern emails did you receive?
One letter of concern and 2 people inquiring to see the bylaw.
And there was also I believe one of them you said was dealt with by the developer himself, and you haven't heard anything since?
Haven't, no.
Okay.
I will note that the applicant did notify that he was proposing this before he applied for an application to residents and property owners living within 200 meters of the site. So.
Perfect. No, thank you. Appreciate that. That's what you wanted to ask. All right. With that, thank you very much. I don't see any further questions. Oh, I do, Councillor Palladino.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I missed this right off the bat. And maybe the city manager or his designate. The application refers to it, the applicant referred to it as patient-centered development, which is kind of neat, but it includes supportive living as a use. So to clarify and perhaps alleviate some concerns, what's the difference between supportive living and supportive housing?
Thank you for the question. So we have a supportive housing use in the land use bylaw 6300. The use has similar, I guess, operational allowances, but it does limit the number of people housed at that location at 25. And so the uses in this bylaw have a 60-unit cap. So that's the difference between the land use bylaw definition and what we have as part of 6403.
Any further questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, I now declare the public hearing closed. This matter may be decided later this afternoon following the public hearing. All right, I'll move on to bylaw 6402, land use bylaw amendment, re 618 6th Avenue South. This was quite some time ago, and I hope everyone can remember it. For a second reading from Councillor Palladino, be it resolved that bylaw 6402, land use bylaw amendment 618 6th Avenue South be given second reading. Councillor Palladino.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Shannon and Mr. Fisher did a good job of outlining this amendment. The proposed land use bylaw will allow the existing single detached residence to be converted to a personal service use, in this case for massage therapy. The rezoning would be from R37, which is medium density residential, to direct control. The single detached dwelling designation would remain as a permitted use to allow flexibility in the future. The proposal aligns with the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan, the city's municipal development plan, as well as the London Road Area Redevelopment Plan. So I would ask for support from council to proceed with second reading.
Any further questions? I do have a question that I did not ask previously, if I could, to city administration or designate, city manager as designate. This particular property is we'd heard from Ms. Shannon that there would be additional staffing there to provide for their families' future, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Shannon. And so how many would this encompass as far as massage therapists at one time in this building? Who could answer that? Would that be Ms. Shannon? Because I know, first of all, I thought you were leaving that business, was going to be your business, but it sounded like you were going to expand and there was going to be other massage therapists. Is that?
Thank you, Mayor Eigen. I'm happy to answer that question. I am a massage therapist and massage therapy instructor. My intention is to hire other massage therapists to work within that site. And I'm proposing to develop the house into 5 treatment rooms, and we will have potentially 2 shifts. So I'm certain you're not aware of the staffing issues that exist in the massage therapy world right now, but they're thin like hen's teeth. So difficult to find at most points in time. But my proposal would be to provide between 5 to 10 therapists with the opportunity to work throughout the day, which sounds like a lot, but if they're split into different shifts, they would not all be there at one point in time.
5 at a time, it sounds like.
Pretty much, yes.
So a question for our city representation for this that presented. 5 is parking sufficient for 5 customers being at the facility?
Thank you for the question, Mayor. So the parking requirements for personal services use, they're based on the gross floor area and not the number of staff for the business.
Now, question maybe for Mr. City Manager, you've got 5 people that are coming for massage. Where would they park?
So the bylaw 6402.
Could be busing, I guess, too, or whatever, but.
The bylaw would provide for it does require 4 parking stalls in the rear of the property, and there also is street parking in the front of the property. And we've also checked with regulatory services, and there is a residential parking permit, residential parking system in place there, so we don't feel that would impact the residents.
Thank you. Ms. Shannon, you had something to add? Yeah, go ahead.
I've lived in this neighborhood for approximately 20 years, and I'm adjacent to a number of commercial structures such as the Hague Medical Clinic, the Lackadam Medical Clinic, formerly Peterson and Purvis. I don't know the name of the new law firm that's in there. There's a number of businesses adjacent to me, and also people who work downtown. And throughout the years, people have commuted to their employment using various means, personal transportation, city transportation. People are comfortable parking, further into the neighborhood and walking into the city. There is a substantial amount of parking, and there's also a substantial amount of foot traffic in the neighborhood. I appreciate your concern, and I can understand how this could impact my proposal, but I don't believe that it would negatively impact what I'm attempting. I wouldn't be negatively impacting the neighborhood with this proposal.
No, I appreciate that. And it's more for your business going forward is I know I used to operate one of these facilities myself, and it's something that I want to make sure that you're successful in that location by having customers be able to come and
I believe with the proposal that we have developed, I believe that we are, going to be successful with that. And I appreciate your concern. I think it's appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shannon. All right, that I see no further questions, and I believe opening and closing already for second reading. Councilor Palladino, all right. Question's been called. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, and for a third reading, be it resolved that bylaw 6402, land use bylaw amendment, re 618 6th Avenue South, be given third reading, and the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign and seal the same. Councilor.
Call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving on, I have a resolution from Councilor Dodick, bylaw 6403, land use bylaw amendment, re 1730 10th Avenue South, for a second reading. Be it resolved that bylaw 6403, land use bylaw amendment regarding 1730 10th Avenue South, be given second reading. Councilor Dodick.
Excuse me. Yes, thank you. Obviously, I'm going to be asking for council support on this. I'm going to begin debate a little bit unusually, in usual fashion, and that's by responding to a letter that we received regarding this matter from a citizen, which is in our package. And they were in opposition to the changes proposed for bylaw 6403 until the following questions have been fully answered. I'm not going to go through each of the questions, but other than just the first one, because all of them essentially flow from it. And the first question is, who is providing the support/supportive services? So the 6 questions that were asked are all questions that can only be answered once an application has been made for a development permit, and assuming that that permit has been granted because it's a permitted use under the bylaw, none of these questions could be answered. So you wouldn't know who's providing the support services, whether it would be someone applying to Mr. Harvey to have room in the facility, or if Mr. Harvey were to sell the facility, then the next person might do it. So the answer to these questions, they're all planning questions, cannot be answered in the zoning application. So I wanted to make it clear to this citizen that we're not ignoring that, but it's just not questions that can be responded to in this process. All right, now, on the second reading, I had a few more things. I was expecting a little bit more opposition, but I may jump around a bit. But in April of 2022, City Council did not approve a zoning application, which effectively sterilized the marketability of the property. And Mr. Harvey alluded that to in his letter when he said, currently the zoning is very limiting, and the marketability of the current offering is limited or virtually non-existent. In reality, I think non-existent was more accurate based on the zoning that was left in place. And the reason for that is we created a catch-22. It was a seniors facility for many years that ultimately was not sustainable and was shuttered. And it was clear that since April 2022, nobody wanted to run the property as a seniors facility. And as Mr. Harvey alluded to, or noted, was that there is availability for seniors housing in Lethbridge. So there's a reason why nobody wanted to operate that as a seniors facility. We could have got into a situation, it's sort of akin to the Atrium building, but if we maintain zoning as a seniors facility and nobody wants to run it as a seniors facility, then all that's going to happen is that it's going to wither on the vine, and effectively we'll just have a derelict property on our hands. So the applicant doesn't know with specificity what might operate in the building other than what is specified in the bylaw as a permitted use. Again, I don't want to be a broken record, but that comes through the development permit and application process. Dealing with the age, as administration pointed out, the age restriction rehousing at the location, although proposed by the applicant, at least to those portions of the facility that might be used as a senior facility, was removed from the bylaw, even though he wanted it included. And I understand their position. There's policy 49 that wants to make equitable treatment of all Lethbridge citizens, but it creates a reverse ageism too, so it makes sense to have that removed from there. But as I noted in my question to the city solicitor, there's nothing that prevents the owner of the building or whoever the landlord might be to actually put in age restrictions for the housing in that facility for seniors, subject to complying with the provisions of the Alberta Human Rights Act. And I'll end it by just saying, as administration pointed out, zoning essentially defines uses that properties may have, not the users of those uses. And I totally agree with that. I would ask for council support with respect to this proposed zoning.
Thank you. I too will support this for the opportunity. I thank Mr. Harvey for a conversation that we had regarding its intended use and what this could be used for. And I think it's a brilliant idea for that area. It's something that it won't sit derelict, as what was mentioned previously, and us end up being an eyesore, to be honest with you, in the future. So I would hope that what is listed there does move forward. I know that it does open it up somewhat, but I'm confident that there's uses that would fit and be sustainable in that area, and some of them you had mentioned. So I will be supporting this. With that, is there any further debate? If not,
silence suggests to me which way this vote is going, so I will not bore my colleagues any further, and I would call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? And I see that is unanimous. So move by Councillor Dodic, a third reading. Be it resolved that bylaw 6403, land use bylaw amendment, re 1730 10th Avenue South, be given third reading, and the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign and seal the same. Councillor Dodic.
Call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? Opposed? That's carries unanimously. Thank you. And with that, we are adjourned. And I just wanted, before we adjourn, I've already said that, just a notice out to community that the thing I don't want to remind people of, because it's city taxes are due June 30th. Come enjoy some free parking out front to pay your taxes. And so they are due by June 30th, and so that is Friday. So just a notice on that. Thank you.